Welcome to the webinar, everybody. I'm Dave Cox, our VP of Identity Security Services at Xalient in North America. Very happy to have with us Ryan Cluff, our IGA Director, and Kevin Bender, Senior Manager in our IGA practice. Welcome, gentlemen. Well, let's dive in. Let's talk about roles for a minute. Maybe starting with you, Ryan. Obviously, roles and a robust RBAC implementation is a bit of a holy grail in the space. What, in your experience, makes this so challenging?
I admit it's a great question. I think, having done this in the last, 10 years plus, just focused on helping organizations get their identity and access management organized. Role seems to be a challenge. It's a hard one. We see some organizations that have done a very poor job of it. We have others that we have actually seen be very successful with it. I think what makes it hard is that there is some planning that really ought to go into it before you start going down the path. And what happens oftentimes is that people get excited about putting some roles together to solve some immediate term items, and they don't have necessarily the foundation to be able to make it sustainable. And therefore, it turns into a little bit of a mess. It can be really hard to govern, hard to manage, and then you end up setting up a project in the future to do a reset. And let's relook at this thing and start all over again. It's also a challenge to have access to the right data to be able to make the right kinds of decisions. And traditionally, it takes a ton of work, a lot of hours put into it. So you have to have the framework first, then you have to put the hours into it to make it work. So those are some of the things that, at least that I've seen, that really makes role management to be a challenge.
So for the clients that we worked with that have been able to get a good process and right kind of executive sponsorship and so forth in place, how have we been able to help, I guess, accelerate the implementation of the different types of roles, starting at the enterprise level, and achieve best practices using the technology that the access modeling tool that SailPoint provides?
That's a great question. I think at the foundation is that need to be able to set the clear understanding right up front. So, and for the projects that we found to be very successful, the thing is that you're going to start using some level of roles almost automatically before you have an RBAC program. That's just going to happen by default because of the nature, for example, of an enterprise role or birthright roles. Sometimes you actually create birthright roles as part of your base implementation. Sometimes you just trigger that birthright access right out of the workflow itself, as opposed to leveraging roles or even birthright roles. Either way, you always, not always, but often end up with some level of roles. And the natural tendency is to just jump into it. Oh, I've already got some roles. Let's just go ahead and create more and put them in there. And so what we found really helps is to first establish the foundation, which is a role model. Are you going to use a model that uses enterprise level roles and then classifies roles at the department level and then classifies them further down, potentially at the team level, and then some tiny other ad hoc additional specific roles that you're going to leverage? And then how does that tie to the size of the organization, how you're going to approach that? How are you going to get some of the rules set up in place, like what kinds of access should never be in a role, inside of a role? You need to set up your processes, like who can request a new role be created? Who can approve a role being modified? Who's responsible to check that the role content is still accurate? Who's going to own approvals for roles? Those kinds of questions are really important to get done up front. And if you get that framework in place, then you actually have a live, actionable plan around your roles, and it can be a living, breathing thing that stays live and accurate and actually can provide a ton of value. And that can take a little while, or it can take a little bit longer to get that established, depending on how the dynamics are within your particular organization. But getting that initial plan in place, that role model, and then actually being able to tie that into the other processes is huge for a foundation. Now, once you have that framework in place, then you can really begin to start doing the really valuable analysis of how do you approach it. Now, how do you approach actually rolling out roles into your organization? And is it all data driven? Is it all 100% let the tool tell you what it should be? Or should it be the other way? Should it be that you go and meet with each of the businesses and you talk to them about what they do and what kind of people do what they do, and you start putting together a kind of an understanding of the roles, that the hats, I should say, that people wear in the company. And then you want to start creating roles for those particular hats that people wear. What's the best approach there? Anyway, we found that it's you got to do both. There's no way around it. You've got to have both conversations. But the benefit that you get from this is where the tooling comes into your earlier question, is that if you can streamline the process to get some of the analysis done, what we typically call bottoms up analysis, which is having your SailPoint platform, for example, look at all the access that each person has, and then to be able to come back with some recommendations of where there are groups of access that are easy to understand and model. That gives you a nice baseline of potential suggested roles, for example, that you can then take and then validate those with the business to make sure that those two things actually do come together. Traditionally, that's been done with extracts. You do a lot of data extracts out of your systems, and you create these pivot tables, and you try to do the analysis of where the ties are. How closely connected are these people and these access in those combinations?
So, Kevin, you mentioned that the SailPoint's AI access modeling tool has really helped us on our projects. Maybe just a quick, brief description of what that tool does, kind of maybe a little bit how we use it and what kind of outcomes we've been able to achieve.
Yeah, sure, Dave. So the tool's purpose, is straightforward, is to create roles and create role modeling and allow you to update your existing roles, which traditionally has always been done manually. It's very time intensive, very analytical, and this truly is nearly a click of a button solution. You just build a search criteria and set some parameters, and it gives you instant results. We've had huge success with this tool for those companies who have most of their applications of interest already integrated. So there is some benefit to having more integration. And over time, that value keeps growing, and that's something manually you just couldn't do before.
Yeah, mainly because you couldn't do it before, mainly because access is so dynamic across, especially a large enterprise, that you would have to hire a full-time army to keep track of it in spreadsheets. Whereas with this tool, obviously you can adapt quickly as the dynamic of the organization and the access models change. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I mean, in the old model, you'd effectively have to start over. So an additional application could change the results, and you would have to do that long, intensive process, almost completely over. Where the AI tool within SailPoint is unaffected by that. I mean, it's agnostic towards the data that is presented, and it spits out the data as is. So huge benefit compared to the traditional methods.
So it puts you in a position to generate that initial access model that the company, an organization, can start with. But then as the organization evolves and you've got your appropriate governance processes in place, it can continue ongoing, informing that governance, the whole governance flow. Yeah. so things can adapt as needed.
That's
Yeah.
true. And even over time, it's almost exponential. The benefit becomes exponential. It benefits the more information it has, the better the tool gets, which is,
Yeah.
totally different than the traditional method where it's just a place in time effort benefit that just remains static until you do that effort once more.
So Ryan, so for organizations that maybe currently are using SailPoint, what kind of advice could you offer around how they could prepare to leverage this capability towards a RBAC model?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kevin touched on it earlier, but one of the main benefits is that you can actually get value out of it like right away. Meaning that because it is dynamic, it's going to tell you based on the data that it has, you can still get value out of it just like right away. So your initial implementation, you're going to bring in enough data. Maybe it's just Active Directory, maybe it's two other applications that you brought in, and you're trying to establish some of those enterprise level roles that you want to create. You can come up with your initial analysis and have a dynamic decision about what those enterprise roles might look like just based on that initial data that you bring in. The beauty of it is that I can just revisit that whenever I'm ready with the additional access that continues to be added as my maturity continues to move down that path. So as I get to that place where traditionally you won't start doing any role management, or you shouldn't until you have enough data to where it makes sense, because it is a big one-time effort to get started and then some incremental, follow on. I would still recommend that in general that you don't go full RBAC program right out the gate, but you do leverage the tool to get your bearings around the data that's there when you first initially implement it. Gives you some great insights right off the bat. That allows you to leverage that tool for some instant data, for some initial roles, and then the time to put the thought in to get your processes right, your role model right, for how you're going to actually do this on the broader scale to reach that next level of maturity across your entire organization. And the tool allows that because, as we said, dynamically, you can go back and keep using it depending on which state you're in. And you're going to want that anyway to keep those roles alive, to keep them not stale. You want to stay away from the project mentality of, I have to just do this one big project. We're going to get roles set up, and then we can all go do something else for a while. That's a dangerous way of thinking about it. And that's one of those things that allows that using the SailPoint AI allows you to do, is just to keep it fresh.
Anything you'd add to that, Kevin?
Well, not only the scenario that Ryan mentioned, but if you have an existing model prior to your use of SailPoint, or someone has started a role governance program before, if you have those artifacts left over, this tool immediately day one is definitely something you can use to bounce against what you've already done in those other efforts to see if there's alignment. See where you can maybe pick up that old project and keep going. So that's, we've used that at more than one client actually, to take their legacy efforts and then on top of it as an add-on use SailPoint's AI role mining functionality to tweak, adjust, update, change their existing models.
And I think that kind of begins to answer the next question around, for those organizations that perhaps are already down the road, maybe have already leveraged SailPoint and the SailPoint AI access modeling component to get to that, maybe over that initial hurdle. What kind of guidance then do we provide for them to take the next step and to continue to refine? Maybe they haven't arrived yet because they've just gotten over the initial hurdle, but now how do they refine?
Sorry, yeah, I'll take that. So to me, that is that has to be part of your plan. Your role model and your governance plan have to include what are the processes you're going to involve to make sure that it does stay current. And obviously those processes would be, how do I leverage this AI tool to give me the differences, to run the queries, to have it spit out stuff that lets me see, are we still on track, or is it time to make adjustments? So it becomes a live thing. So you've got two things happening. You've got revisiting and just validating to make sure that you don't have stuff that's way out of whack on your what it reports back on you. Then you've got the other part, which is this has to happen also as you continue to add new applications, right? New applications change that dynamic. Same with new users. That's why it always has to be refreshed. You've got new users, new user types. The business changes. And so those are all pieces that have to be, they'll all have to come together to make sure that's part of a process so that you can leverage that tool to make it easier to get through that process.
Thanks, Ryan. Makes sense. Kevin, what would you add to that?
Yeah. So to Ryan's point, the key benefit we found is the fact that data, all that effort, all that, mining, implementation of roles, it doesn't become stale. This tool will allow you to get that governance piece, which is managing these roles, in high gear on day one. So something could happen on day 2 and change, or a month or a year from now with, like Ryan said, new users, new access, new applications. There's the time to market of those changes is like exponentially faster than historically. So we found that, on a benefit scale or analysis, this tool really brings home the value in that area.